In 1995, Li Denghui, then the President of the Republic of China, visited the United States, which aroused strong dissatisfaction in Chinese mainland. The People's Republic of China held unprecedented large-scale exercises in the Taiwan Strait twice in 1995 and 1996, including launching missiles off the coast of Taiwan and conducting advanced amphibious landing operations. For a time, the Taiwan Strait was enveloped in a thick cloud of war, and war seemed imminent. What is the reason for this Taiwan Strait crisis? Firstly, in the early 1990s, China and the United States were at loggerheads over the June 4 incident. Here, I would like to add that the June 4 incident occurred because the United States promoted peaceful evolution and wanted to see the Soviet Union's disintegration story replayed in China. Of course, there were also many problems within China at that time, including many problems in the higher echelons. I will not expand on this here, but if you are interested, you can leave a message. I will make a video specifically about it later. In short, China and the United States were at loggerheads over the June 4 incident, and the United States and Western countries imposed sanctions on China. The second reason is that due to the drastic changes in Eastern Europe and the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the United States no longer needs to co-opt China to counter the Soviet Union. Therefore, the actions of the United States are based on its own global hegemonic interests, not on democratic freedom, which has always been a means for it to achieve its hegemony. We will not expand on this point. So what is the reaction of the United States in the Taiwan Strait crisis? The United States urgently dispatched 2 aircraft carrier battle groups, the Nimitz and the Independence, to the Taiwan Strait, and also held a large-scale military exercise in response. The atmosphere at that time was indeed like a storm brewing, and it was indeed possible for the 2 major powers to go to war over Taiwan. This was not just imagination, but was based on facts. According to a later espionage case, in 1996, a plan for the Joint 961 exercise of the People's Liberation Army was leaked to the Taiwan authorities by spy Liu Lianquan. It showed that in the event of a worst-case scenario, the military exercise could turn into a real military action at any time. However, due to the strong pressure from the United States and the fact that the battle plan was leaked by spies, the military exercise did not turn into a military action. So, we can see how much damage spies can do to national security. Because of this, Liu Lianquan was sentenced to death by the military court in 1999. Ironically, the Taiwan authorities put him in the so-called National Revolutionary Martyrs Shrine of the Republic of China. I think after reunification, Liu Lianquan will definitely be removed from this martyr's shrine. He is on the wrong side of history. Compared to 1996, when the United States sent 2 aircraft carrier battle groups to force China to submit, 27 years have passed. Can the United States still rely on 2 aircraft carrier battle groups to deter China? Let's take a look at the latest Taiwan crisis. On August 2, 2022, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, led a delegation to visit Taiwan, which triggered a series of island enclosure exercises. This exercise broke through the so-called central line of the Chinese mainland at one stroke, that is, since then, the mainland has not recognized the so-called central line of the Taiwan Strait. This exercise has created many first demonstrations of island enclosure operations against Taiwan, and missiles have crossed the island for the first time. The first naval exercise was held on the east coast of Chinese mainland, and there were also some interesting stories. For example, a private hacker organization in mainland China wanted to capture Taiwan. Even the large screen of the station of Taiwan has become a political propaganda screen of the mainland. The U.S. response this time was quite low-key. In addition to deploying the aircraft carrier USS Reagan, it also deployed the amphibious assault ships USS Tripoli and USS America in Japan. Even the aircraft carrier battle group made a big detour to avoid the PLA, which can be said to be a very low-key response. The low-key reaction of the United States is also quite normal, because in terms of the current comparison of strength between China and the United States cannot afford a full-scale conflict with China, just as China cannot afford a full-scale conflict with the United States. Because once the two superpowers collide directly, the final result will be that the United States loses its global hegemony and China loses the wealth accumulated over decades of reform and opening up. The fall of the two superpowers and the rise of other regional powers, such as the European Union and Russia, are not something that China and the United States would be so foolish as to allow. The current wishful thinking of the United States is to avoid a direct conflict with China and then use all means other than a hot war, such as trade war, financial war, technology war, public opinion war, etc., to bring down China. This is why U.S. President Biden has been saying that he wants to install guardrails in the Sino-U.S. relations. Nowadays, there are many voices on the internet calling for war and killing. They think that the People's Liberation Army will send 1 million troops to Taiwan at the order of the leader. I feel that it is more of an emotional vent than a manifestation of the true will to war. War is very cruel. Many people feel uncomfortable even watching some videos of Gaza, let alone going to the battlefield. Look how miserable the ordinary people in Gaza are. War is like wildfire, easy to start but hard to put out. The reality is far from simple, and the reunification of Taiwan faces challenges both inside and outside. Internal challenges. 1. Moral dilemma. Both sides of the Taiwan Strait are Chinese, and we have always advocated that Chinese people should not fight against Chinese people. We have also seen that Russia has fought against Ukraine. In recent decades, the propaganda in Chinese mainland has been that people on the other side of the country are blood thicker than water. When we are really on the battlefield, is there a process of ideological construction? I don't know if there is any psychological construction in the military in this regard, but at least the majority of people in society still regard Taiwanese as their own compatriots. If it really develops into street fighting and videos like those in Gaza are released, how big will the anti-war wave be? War is a process of escalation. Once this happens, I can guarantee that it will definitely happen. If it doesn't happen, it's not war. Once this happens, it will stimulate the resistance of the Taiwanese people. The more intense the resistance of the Taiwanese people, the more intense the response of the People's Liberation Army. This spiral will continue until one side is completely destroyed. Is this really what we want? 2. Difficulties in cross-ocean operations. Many people underestimate the difficulty of cross-ocean operations. We all saw how difficult it was for Russia to fight Ukraine, which borders Russia. How much more difficult it would be for an isolated island. All supplies and personnel have to be transported across the ocean, which makes cross-ocean operations very difficult. 3. For a long time, China has not been prepared for war, especially for a large-scale war. War is not a dinner party, it's about killing people. Many people romanticize war, which I think is related to the popularity of many brainless anti-Japanese TV dramas in mainland China for many years. In war, you could die at any moment, how can you still be in love? All of them are sleek and smooth, with no dust on their faces, it's ridiculous. 4. The intervention of external forces. Just imagine, now the United States is leading the Western world in trying to decouple from China. They are under tremendous pressure of inflation, and the public is becoming increasingly impatient. If China initiates a war against Taiwan at this time, won't it give those anti-China politicians a reason to accelerate the complete decoupling from China? The Western public had already been unable to bear the economic pressure, and public opinion was inclined to compromise with China. As a result, if you took the initiative to start a fire, wouldn't that encourage the Western public to completely turn to anti-China politicians? Even if China is not completely decoupled from the world economy, and is subjected to the same sanctions as Russia, what will happen to China's economy? China's economic takeoff in recent decades has been due to its integration into the global economic cycle. If China is completely decoupled from the Western world, the situation will be very bad. Many people feel that decoupling is not important and they just want to see who will die first. The key is that from a political perspective, how can leaders act impulsively? The Art of War states, the ruler should not go to war out of anger. Moreover, if China decouples from the West, it will benefit the Southeast Asia, India, and Mexico. This is called killing 1,000 enemies and losing 800. It is completely unnecessary. Only in extreme situations, such as a full-scale war, can one resort to unscrupulous means to win. But the current situation is that China has not completely turned its back on the United States and other Western countries. Doing such things that harm others and benefit no one is the stupidest thing. Of course, if there is a military unification, I believe the Chinese nation will unite as one and fully support the country, even if it means accepting great losses. Because if a military unification really happens, it will be a battle for the true rise of the Chinese nation, and it will be a battle that decides the fate of the world. I want to say 4 points. 1. Time is on our side. As long as we keep our current pace of development, step by step developing our economy and breaking through cutting-edge technologies, then the final victory will surely come as scheduled. 2. The hegemony of the United States and the West is still strong at this stage. In terms of the strategic competition between China and the United States, the unprotracted war written by Chairman Mao Zedong can be seen that China is still in a strategic defensive position and the United States is in a strategic offensive position. However, after a series of measures such as the U.S. trade war, financial war, information war, and technology war, it is found that China has not been greatly affected. Therefore, it is now felt that there is a strategic stalemate. I predict that this stalemate will last for a long time. As for when the strategic counteroffensive will be launched, it depends on when the internal contradictions in the United States will completely erupt. Remember, the fall of a superpower is never caused by external wars, but by its own contradictions. 3. China still needs to develop. As former Premier Li Keqiang said, there are still 600 million people in China with an income of less than 1,000 yuan per capita. China has developed rapidly in the past decade and has made great achievements, but there is still much room for improvement. We must not slacken our efforts at this time, and we must not feel arrogant. The sense of being a superior country has returned. We must remember that it was the arrogance of the Chinese imperial court that caused China to experience a century of humiliation in the late Qing dynasty. 4. The big background of the era is the struggle for supremacy between the United States and China, and Taiwan should be considered in this context. Taiwan is important and has strategic significance, but it is not something that must be resolved immediately. As mentioned above, the more pressing task is still to develop the economy while developing its own cutting-edge technology and military power. Finally, it's not important that young people in Taiwan no longer consider themselves Chinese. You have to believe in the cohesion and centripetal force of Chinese culture. Nowadays, young people in Taiwan have a tendency to be drawn into the mainland cultural circle. For example, some time ago, young people in Taiwan also became popular with the dance Subject 3, so there's no need to be in a hurry in this regard. Even if Taiwan's young people completely do not consider themselves Chinese, after reunification, with the ideological transformation of a generation, I still believe in our party's transformation ability. The most tragic situation is still Taiwan's young people. My ideal, and perhaps the optimal scenario, is that in the future, a similar incident to Nancy Pelosi's will occur, and China will respond strongly, while the United States will back down. This will trigger a shift in social thought in Taiwan society, and then a slow process of peaceful reunification will begin. Or if China surpasses the United States to become the most powerful country in the world, the Chinese civilization is fully revived, and China becomes the center of the entire Asia and even the world, then naturally Taiwan will return. In short, time is on our side. As long as we maintain strategic focus, Taiwan will be reunited with China. This is the dream of hundreds of millions of Chinese people. Taiwan's reunification is also part of the Chinese dream. Only when this dream is realized can China truly achieve rejuvenation. Okay, that's all for today's video. I hope you like this video. If you do, please give me a thumbs up. Thank you.